Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Memory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bring you our 2014 NFL team preview for the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to take a look at their offense, their defense, as well as their special teams. So let's start on the offensive side of the football with the quarterback position.
The Vikings have found their franchise quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater, and in my opinion should be the day one starter. There's no need to waste time in starting a quarterback in Matt Castle or Christian Ponder, both of whom's play led the Vikings to picking a quarterback in round one anyway. And Bridgewater is only going to get better with every live game rep. Like I've said before, his game is as polished as Andrew Luck's was coming out of Stanford, and that's going to take the pressure off Adrian Peterson by taking that one extra guy out of the box. The future is now in Minnesota. Armed with arguably the best back in the game, Adrian Peterson once again proved to be the most consistent offensive weapon for the Vikings. Peterson ran for over 1,200 yards last year, averaging 90 yards a game. He'll definitely benefit from having a better passing attack and improvements made up front. I look for him to approach closer to 1,500 yards this season on the ground. The backup job is more intriguing. Gone is Toby Gerhardt via free agency, while Matt Asiata is a guy who played sparingly, as you'd expect, behind Adrian Peterson. And rookie Jerick McKinnon out of Georgia Southern is one I'd keep an eye on as the number 2 guy because of what he brings to the table from a receiving, speed, and acceleration perspective. I also like fullback Zach Klein as a short yardage goal line single back type runner. Either way, the backs will have the benefit of running behind, or the luxury of running behind, a very good fullback in Jerome Felton. The Vikings have good talent here at wide receiver with Greg Jennings and Jerome Simpson. They were a solid duo combining for over 1,500 yards, and I'd expect Jennings to be much better this season with better and more consistent quarterback play. Second-year player Cordero Patterson, in my opinion, will become the number 2 wide receiver and continue to build on what he did as a rookie once he got more playing time. Patterson scored 9 touchdowns last year, 3 different ways for the Vikings, and figures to be much more involved in the passing game this season. He's a game breaker and has that star potential. And I would also look for Jarius Wright and Rodney Smith to garner more opportunities in spread sets. Smith has that good size that you look for, and Wright has the explosive component to his game, and last year we started to see the Wright that we saw back at Arkansas. An undrafted free agent that also has a shot is Eric Laura out of Eastern Illinois, whose experience in the slot and reading coverages on the fly gives him a chance to stick. Tight end Kyle Rudolph is a good all-around player that reminds me a lot of the Pittsburgh Steelers tight end Heath Miller, and in Norv Turner's offense, he'll more than likely see his fair share of targets. Rhett Ellison is a very solid H-back type that blocks very well, but as far as needing an additional tight end option, look no further than undrafted rookie free agent A.C. Leonard out of Tennessee State. He gives the Vikings exactly what they need, a move player with good run-after-the-catch skills, and we'll learn a lot about the Vikings receiving core this year with better play at the quarterback position. For the most part, the Vikings have a solid offensive line, more in particular on the outside. In my opinion, right guard Brandon Fusco is solid enough and has shown enough growth year over year to have solidified his spot. Both left guard Charlie Johnson and center John Sullivan are not consistent enough to be as secure. 2 rookies on the roster, David Yankee out of Stanford and undrafted free agent Zach Karen out of Toledo, could push for starting opportunities. To be completely honest, I just think they are flat out the better players. If Sullivan and Johnson can elevate their game, then it just bolsters the quality and the depth of the group as a whole. At tackle, things are a little bit better with former first-round pick Matt Khalil and 6-year vet Phil Lodeholt. Khalil leveled off a bit last year, but is still a very good left tackle, while Lodeholt anchors the running game and has found his comfort zone in pass protection. 3 undrafted rookie free agents in Antonio Richardson out of Tennessee, Austin Wentworth out of Fresno State, and Matt Hall out of Belhaven have a great chance to make the roster. All 3 I had draftable grades on, and when you look at Jeff Baca and also free agent Mike Remmers and Vlad Dukas coming over from the New York Jets provides guard tackle type flexibility up front. There's a youth movement up front for the Vikings, gone are longtime stars Kevin Williams and Jared Allen, and the hope is that young players like defensive end Everson Griffin and defensive tackle Sharif Floyd and Linval Joseph can build on the production of both Allen and Williams by also adding their upside to the mix. In reserve roles, both Griffin and free agent signee Joseph have shown enough to give new head coach Mike Zimmer some hope. Floyd, last year's first-round pick, should be much improved over his rookie season as he's going to get those starters reps, which is most important. 8-year vet defensive end Brian Robeson is the elder statesman up front as he had 9 sacks last year. Robeson may be pushed by rookie third-round pick Scott Crichton out of Oregon State, whose relentlessness led him to be involved in plenty plays behind the line of scrimmage at Oregon State. In free agency, the Vikings wanted to protect themselves by bringing in capable vets like defensive tackles Tom Johnson and Keaston Randall and defensive end Corey Wooten from the Chicago Bears, teaming them up with holdover Fred Evans, giving them guys that can spot start if need be. And the talent is definitely here, but the production is where the question lies. They have to be productive from the start to help out a secondary that still faces some questions as well entering the season. I may be in a minority, but I like the linebacking core of the Minnesota Vikings. Veteran Chad Greenway makes plays all over the field and can play any linebacker spot. He also led the team in both tackles and interceptions. He's rejoined this year by Jasper Brinkley, who spent the year in Arizona after spending the previous 4 in Minnesota. He excels exclusively versus the run, which is why, in my opinion, Audi Cole, who saw extended time last year, is an underrated player on the roster. Cole at 6'5", 240, has the ability to play well on both ends. The biggest addition is first-round pick Anthony Barr out of UCLA. What Barr brings to the table is the ability to apply pressure on the quarterback while also showcasing the athleticism to go out and cover tight ends and running backs. Barr's athleticism gives new head coach Mike Zimmer and defensive coordinator George Edwards the creativity to move players around and create situational problems for opposing offenses. And there's also 2 2013 draft picks in Michael Mauti and Gerald Hodges, 2 Penn Staters that provide excellent depth at both inside backer as well as outside backer. Last year, the Vikings struggled versus the pass, ranking 31st in the league, and not only was yardage an issue, but so was giving up the big play. 2 reasons, in my opinion, were directly responsible. Number 1, inconsistent play on the corners, and number 2, Harrison Smith being lost for half the season. With the return of Smith, mistakes deep will be kept to a minimum as he's one of the top young safeties in the game. Everywhere else, you still have some questions. Contrary to popular belief, however, Xavier Rhodes played well as a rookie. You'd expect the consistency to catch up to the talent in year 2. The Vikings also signed Captain Munnerlyn in free agency, and Munnerlyn played well for the Panthers and is definitely an upgrade over Chris Cook. Depth is where the concerns come into play. Veterans Sean Prater and Josh Robinson haven't been able to seize opportunities, which could leave the door open for rookies Kendall James and Jabari Price to earn playing time. Free agent signee Derek Cox could be a dark horse candidate to win the nickel job, as well as rookie Antoine Exum out of Virginia Tech, who could also be in the mix at safety. Speaking of safety, outside of Harrison Smith, Jamarcus Sanford is a starting strong safety, but again, must keep a guy like Exum at bay, who may end up starting by year's end. One of the strongest aspects of the Vikings football team is their special teams. Minnesota invested in their kicking game with draft picks, and they've paid off big time. Kicker Blair Walsh has both accuracy and distance, and although he was a bit off last year from 50+, that's the anomaly. He'll be back to his rookie form. Punter Jeff Locke averaged 44 yards a punt as a rookie. His directional punting needs consistency, but that'll come in time. The return game is where they are extremely dangerous. Both Marcus Sherrills and Cordero Patterson are game breakers. Sherrills averaged 15 yards a punt return, bringing one back to the house, while Patterson averaged a whopping 32 yards a kickoff return and 2 touchdowns. If they decide to alleviate the duties of Patterson, I'd look for rookie Jerick McKinnon to be in the mix for the kickoff return job. Armed with a new quarterback with talent makes the entire offense better. New defensive-minded head coach with an athletic front 7, and not to mention a top-notch special teams and arguably the best back in the game in Adrian Peterson is plenty of reasons to be optimistic if you're a Vikings fan. Now, the cause for concern would be the secondary. I believe that's still a question in certain spots, mainly depth-wise, and losing guys like Jared Allen and Kevin Williams does raise some questions. If you're hoping a lot of young guys can pick up the slack, that's enough right there to have concern going into the season. The road to the Super Bowl for the Vikings goes as follows. Number 1, you want to handle Bridgewater like a veteran. That's giving him the entire playbook, allowing him to make checks at the line of scrimmage, allowing him to trust what he sees out there in the passing game, because you know you can always lean on the ground game, and now having a quarterback that has great capability back there is going to open up the passing game, so you have to handle him like a veteran and not a rookie. And the secondary has to minimize the big plays. Again, they gave up way too many big plays deep down the field in the passing game. If that happens again, it could derail their entire season. And third, the young, athletic front seven doesn't take a step back. The Vikings are gambling a lot on youth and athleticism, and if they come to play, the Vikings can not only find themselves winning the division, but also making noise in the playoffs. I have the Vikings finishing third in the NFC North. I think Bridgewater's game instantly balances the offense, which in turn makes them better as a whole. However, there are still some spots that need to be fixed, and overall, this team will flirt with 8 or even 9 wins and is probably 1 year away from breaking through the division. Their running game and special teams will keep them in a lot of ball games, but again, 1 year away before the Vikings can really make some noise. And don't forget to order your copy of Football Game Plan's latest book, Stiff Arming Football Myths, an excellent book that you can find on our website at footballgameplan.com/books, available in both PDF as well as paperback form. And I want to give a huge shout out to Viking fan forums for always showing Football Game Plan support.